This podcast contains descriptions of violence against children and adult language and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Suffer the Little Children, the podcast giving voices back to the victims of child abuse murder and their families. I'm your host, Lane, and this is episode 184, Kinsleigh Welty. When Indianapolis police responded to a 911 call for an unresponsive child on April 9, 2024, they couldn't have guessed the horrific circumstances of the victim's life and death. 5-year-old Kinsleigh Welty, who weighed only 21 pounds, was clearly malnourished. She had a bruise on her face and fecal matter on her body and matted into her hair, which was crawling with lice. Kinsleigh was pronounced dead at Riley Hospital for Children the same day. This is the story of yet another child failed by Indiana's child welfare system. It's also the story of yet another case of reunification gone wrong, and a child who thrived in the care of others, only to die at the hands of a biological parent. Also in this episode, you'll hear from Kinsleigh's great-aunt, Carrie Hogan, who, along with many others, demands change from Indiana's Department of Child Services. This is the gut-wrenching story of Kinsleigh Welty. Today we have yet another Indiana case, yet another case of CPS failure, and yet another case of reunification that resulted in yet another precious child being tortured to death by the people who should have cherished her and protected her. Thank you to Gina Hullett, Judah Morgan's foster mommy, for telling me about Kinsleigh's story and for connecting me with Kinsleigh's great-aunt Carrie, who you'll hear from later in this episode. Quick warning, the details of this story are horrific, and they will be very difficult to hear. Discretion is advised. Let's get into it.
Center Southwest Beat 61, possible DOA 6512 Denver Drive, 4535 South, 6600 West.
I'm clear.
Chief was at 1712, 5-year-old juvenile.
6519 Denver Drive, working a pediatric cardiac arrest. 6519 Denver Drive, working a pediatric cardiac arrest. 1718 hours.
Just before 5:15 on Tuesday, April 9, 2024, the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department was summoned to the Valley Brook Mobile Home Park on a report of an unresponsive child. When first responders arrived at 6519 Denver Drive, they found 5-year-old Kinsleigh Welty in cardiac arrest. She had a bruise on her face, but much more alarmingly, she appeared thin, frail, and clearly malnourished. Kinsleigh was rushed to Riley Hospital for Children, where, at 6:01 p.m., she was pronounced dead. Detective Shane Nicholson of the IMPD's Child Abuse Unit later wrote in a probable cause affidavit, "It appeared Kinsleigh was severely malnourished. Kinsleigh was thin and her eyes were sunken. Kinsleigh had what appeared to be fecal matter on various parts of her body, including the bottom of her feet and in her hair. The fecal matter had matted to her hair and to the bottom of her feet. Kinsleigh had what appeared to be lice or other similar type tiny insects crawling on her face and in her hair. Kinsleigh's hair was very short in length and appeared very thin. There were also what appeared to be bites or other unknown sores on Kinsleigh's abdomen area." Kinsleigh and her mother, 29-year-old Toni Renee McClure, had lived in the Denver Drive mobile home for about 6 months with Toni's boyfriend, 27-year-old Ryan Smith, and 3 other children, including Toni's 2 sons, ages 6 and 4, and Toni and Ryan's newborn daughter. The 3 surviving children were taken into custody by the Department of Child Services, and IMPD child abuse detectives immediately began an investigation, both at the hospital and in the home, with the help of crime lab technicians from the Indianapolis Marion County Forensic Services Agency, who assisted with documenting and collecting evidence. Detective Nicholson interviewed Toni at the hospital. She said she had been separated from her husband, Bradley Welty, who was the father of Kinsleigh and her 2 sons, for 3 or 4 years. Toni told the detective that Bradley had asked if Kinsleigh could stay with him, so she dropped her daughter off with him in early to mid-February. During the time Kinsleigh stayed with her dad, Toni said, she spoke to her daughter regularly through audio-only phone calls. Earlier in the day on April 9th, Tony said, she met with Bradley to take Kinsleigh back. When Kinsleigh got into her car and pulled down the hood of her jacket, Tony said, she noticed that Kinsleigh's hair had been cut and was matted and hard. She said Kinsleigh had lost a lot of weight and looked terrible. According to Tony, Kinsleigh complained about pain in her head and legs, and her legs were trembling. When they arrived home, no more than 20 to 30 minutes after picking Kinsleigh up, Tony said she carried Kinsleigh inside the house, but when she put her down, Kinsleigh immediately collapsed on the floor. Tony claimed she started performing CPR on her daughter, who was gurgling and had a lot of liquid coming out of her mouth. She then called Ryan's mother to pick up the other 3 children and contacted 911. Interestingly, Tony couldn't provide the detective with Bradley's address or phone number. Tony told the detective that Kinsleigh was diagnosed with mild dwarfism and a floppy trachea, which caused food she ate to enter her lungs. She said Kinsleigh had a feeding tube as an infant, but it was removed at Riley Hospital when she was about 2. Otherwise, she said, her daughter had no other medical conditions. The probable cause affidavit also noted that the Department of Child Services had visited the mobile home the very same day Kinsleigh died because Tony's newborn had tested positive for THC, the active ingredient in marijuana. Later, a DCS caseworker told Detective Nicholson that during recent investigations into possible abuse or neglect against Kinsleigh, they had been unable to locate the little girl. The caseworker also mentioned that when she inquired about Kinsleigh's whereabouts at that day's visit, Tony told her that Kinsleigh was with her grandparents. The detective also spoke with Tony's mother, 53-year-old Tammy Halsey, who said she learned from her other daughter, Lainey, that Tony said she was giving Kinsleigh a bath when she had walked away from the bathroom, and when she came back, she found that Kinsleigh had fallen in the tub and was underwater. Tony had told officers Timothy Dillman and Logan Bennett, who responded to her 911 call on April 9th, that they would find a closet where, she claimed, one of her sons would urinate and defecate when he had a seizure. Inside the mobile home, officers entered a bedroom that had a set of bunk beds in it and appeared to belong to Tony's 2 sons. In the bedroom, the closet was barricaded by a dresser and a baby gate. The interior of the closet, including the walls and the carpet, was smeared all over with fecal matter, including small handprints on the inside of the door. The closet reeked of urine and feces. They also found extremely soiled clothing that likely belonged to a young girl, as well as a hard, dry peanut butter sandwich, a hot dog bun, and 3 empty bottles of Ensure. It quickly came to light that this wasn't the first time Tony McClure had grievously neglected Kinsleigh. In December 2018, she and Bradley lived in an apartment in Mooresville, Indiana, with their children, when police received a report that Tony was having a medical issue. When they responded to the apartment, Tony had already been taken to the hospital. One Mooresville officer wrote in his report that the apartment was a repulsive sight and one of the worst living conditions I've ever seen. The rooms were hazardous nightmares for an adult, let alone a toddler and a newborn. They found Kinsleigh's 1-year-old brother running and crawling around on a floor littered with trash, cigarette butts, and dirt, with a filthy couch, dirty mattress, and full ashtray nearby. The officer described 3-week-old Kinsleigh in his report, writing that she had filth on her head and little hands. Both children's diapers were completely full, and police said it appeared Kinsleigh's brother, who was within reach of moldy food and sharp scissors, had been playing with old potatoes. It appeared the trash had never been taken out. Gnats were flying all over the kitchen and living room. The Mooresville Police Department summoned DCS to the scene. When Tony found out that DCS was visiting her apartment, she started freaking out in the hospital. Police discovered that tiny Kinsleigh was shaking, she appeared malnourished, her lips were pale, and her mouth was dry, and when they gave her a bottle of formula, she drained it as if she hadn't eaten in a while. Doctors who examined the baby diagnosed her with failure to thrive. While most babies grow a lot during their first few weeks, Kinsleigh had somehow lost weight. DCS investigated the situation, and as a result, 27-year-old Bradley Welty was charged with 2 counts of neglect, while 24-year-old Tony McClure was hit with 4 counts. Kinsleigh and her older brother were removed from their parents' custody and placed into foster care. Although they initially pleaded not guilty to their criminal charges, ultimately, Bradley and Tony each pleaded guilty to a single count and received suspended sentences. Both managed to violate their probation. In October 2021, Bradley's sentence was amended and he was ordered to serve a little over a year in the Morgan County Jail. Tony spent just 21 days in jail for her crime. For a few years, Kinsleigh and her brother bounced from foster homes to family members to their mother and back again. For at least part of that time, they lived with their loving paternal grandparents, Brian and Tricia Welty. The day after Kinsleigh's death, on April 10th, Tony voluntarily spoke with detectives at the Child Abuse Unit's office. During that interview, Tony gave multiple stories and explanations for everything, but her story quickly collapsed in on itself. She finally admitted she was lying about Bradley being involved, saying he wasn't involved with the kids in any way and hadn't been for over a year. She told detectives it was likely Bradley didn't even know Kinsleigh had died. Regarding DCS, Tony said they had visited the house a month or so before, at which time they took a picture of Kinsleigh and didn't express any concern about the girl's condition. I call bullshit on that claim. There was no way Kinsleigh's condition deteriorated as severely as it did in just a month. The truth finally began spilling out. Tony said she was Kinsleigh's primary caregiver and that when she asked for help with her daughter, no one would help her. However, she also said her mother, Tammy, cared for Kinsleigh sometimes, and she felt Tammy was partially responsible for Kinsleigh's condition because she was aware of what was going on but didn't do anything about it. She didn't get Kinsleigh help, Tony said, because she was afraid of getting into trouble or having her other children taken away. She had no bond or connection with Kinsleigh and felt her daughter hated her and resented her because of being taken by DCS as an infant. She was more apologetic about lying to the detectives than about the horrific way she treated her daughter, although she did admit she had fucked up really bad and would be going to jail. At least she was right about one thing. Tony claimed that just before Kinsleigh collapsed on the floor, she told Tony that she wanted to die. According to Tony, she didn't even know Kinsleigh had lice until she started doing CPR on her. She said she had chopped off Kinsleigh's long blonde hair because of the feces in it, but she never looked at Kinsleigh long enough to see lice on her. Tony admitted that for at least the last few months, and probably longer, she often put her daughter in the closet and forced her to stay there, barely feeding Kinsleigh despite her complaints of hunger. Kinsleigh spent most of her time in the closet, she said, although she was allowed out briefly each day when Tony went somewhere. When Tony returned home, Kinsleigh would go back into the closet without being asked. Why did she force her daughter to live in the closet? Tony explained that it was easier because she didn't have to deal with her daughter while she was in there. In the closet, she said, Kinsleigh would sometimes sit and talk to herself, but other times she would yell for Tony, telling her she was hungry and thirsty, which Tony callously called her slogan. Tony confessed that she had hit Kinsleigh in the face, causing the bruise, because Kinsleigh bit her arm. She claimed she fed Kinsleigh one small meal a day, but admitted she did the bare fucking minimum to care for Kinsleigh. Tony had said she wanted Kinsleigh out of her life and wished her daughter was never born. Tony said that both her boyfriend, Ryan, and her mother, Tammy Halsey, had told her that Kinsleigh needed help and that if she didn't start treating Kinsleigh better, she would die. Even so, Tony said, she did nothing. She said she knew her treatment of Kinsleigh would probably kill her, but she didn't want to believe that would happen. She said she had given up on Kinsleigh, and she knew everything she did to her daughter was wrong. She just didn't care. I'll pause here for a word from my sponsors. The same day Tony spoke with IMPD detectives, Ryan also came in for an interview, accompanied by his mother, Michelle Smith. He said that around 4:15 the previous day, Tony had called and told him to come and get the kids because Kinsleigh was dead. Ryan had to tell Tony to call 911. When Ryan and his mom arrived to pick up the 3 surviving children, he didn't see Kinsleigh, but Tony told him she had drowned. According to Ryan, Kinsleigh hated him because she wanted her real father. He told the detectives that Kinsleigh was not allowed to see his family anymore because she once said to them that Ryan's father told her to pull her pants down, which Ryan claimed wasn't true. Ryan said that since Toni began forcing her daughter to live in the closet around Thanksgiving 2023, he had only seen Toni let Kinsleigh out of the closet maybe 10 times, although he did see Toni bring Kinsleigh food every night. He didn't know if she ate it. He said he suspected Kinsleigh's older brother might be sneaking her snacks or drinks. When Ryan started noticing Kinsleigh's condition deteriorating 4 or 5 months before her death, he said, he threatened Toni that he would call 911 if Toni didn't get Kinsleigh some help. He said he was worried that Kinsleigh was losing so much weight, but he didn't call 911 or otherwise report the abuse because he loved Toni and didn't want her to get in trouble. Ryan told the detectives he thought Kinsleigh died of malnutrition and admitted that he deserved to be punished, but not as harshly as Toni, he said. The Marion County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy the same day by pathologist Dr. Gun-Young Jung and forensic pediatric pathologist Dr. Amanda Paul. The medical examiners found lice covering Kinsleigh's hair, face, and body. Her intestines had no fecal matter whatsoever, only a light pink fluid, and her stomach held less than 5 milliliters of stomach fluid. Although she weighed 35 pounds a year before, at the time of her death, 5-year-old Kinsleigh weighed a shocking 21 pounds, which was less than she weighed at 2.5 years old. According to the CDC, an average 5-year-old girl should weigh almost twice that. The pathologist determined that Kinsleigh's preliminary cause of death was malnourishment due to neglect. Also on April 10th, child abuse detective Sergeant Nicole Flynn interviewed 2 of Kinsleigh's brothers separately, both of whom Toni shared with Bradley Welty. Both confirmed that Kinsleigh was usually relegated to the closet, where she would often defecate. Her younger brother called it the cage. Her older brother told Sergeant Flynn that none of the other kids were punished with the closet, only Kinsleigh, and that she slept on the floor. In a heartbreaking detail reminiscent of several other kids I've featured whose parents starved them, Kinsleigh's older brother said that when the family got pizza, Kinsleigh wasn't allowed to eat it because she was bad. That was also the reason he said she wasn't allowed to play with video games or toys while the other kids could. He also mentioned that Kinsleigh often begged their mother from the closet for a drink, but Toni would either ignore her completely or tell her no. The sergeant also interviewed Kinsleigh's 11-year-old brother, who lived with his grandfather but went to Toni and Ryan's house every day after school. The boy didn't know about Kinsleigh's death, and when Lisa Brown of the IMPD Victim Assistance Unit met with him afterward to tell him that Kinsleigh had died, he became very emotional and said he felt guilty about what happened to his sister. What happened to Kinsleigh is tragic and horrifying on its own. Now just think about what those other kids witnessed, rationalized, and absorbed in that household and how it will affect them for the rest of their lives. When Detective Nicholson interviewed Ryan's mother, Michelle told him she had last seen Kinsleigh for her 5th birthday in early December 2023, at which time she said Kinsleigh did not look right. She said Kinsleigh's hair was thin and raggedy, her skin was off-colored, and her face was sunken, although it was hard to tell she had lost weight because of the clothes she wore. Michelle said the family had lived with her for a short time in 2023, and she thought Kinsleigh had either bipolar disorder or schizophrenia because she had wild mood and behavior swings. She also said that Kinsleigh would wait until the family was asleep and then get into the cabinets. It's possible but rare for a child as young as Kinsleigh, who was 4 when she lived with Michelle, to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia is an even rarer diagnosis for a child that age. While I'm in no way an expert, it seems far more likely to me that the abuse and neglect she was enduring caused Kinsleigh's behavior issues. Michelle told the detective that about 6 months before Kinsleigh's death, she and Ryan had a long conversation about the way Toni treated her daughter, saying he was afraid Kinsleigh would die and even had nightmares that he would wake up and find her dead. From what her son told her, Michelle said, Toni seemed to resent Kinsleigh, with whom she had a vastly different relationship than the one she had with her boys. Michelle claimed she didn't know about the closet. After that long conversation, she often asked Ryan how Kinsleigh was doing, and he told her the situation was moving in the right direction. Due to the overwhelming evidence against them, Detective Nicholson arrested Tony McClure and Ryan Smith. Tony's phone had already been seized as evidence, but Ryan's was taken upon his arrest. IMPD Chief Chris Bailey said in a statement, "My heart breaks knowing what Kinsleigh went through in her short life and how she left this world. The circumstances of Kinsleigh's death are horrific and beyond comprehension. No human being, let alone a child, should be treated like she was. These alleged suspects, if convicted, should never step foot outside of a prison. I am so thankful for the officers, detectives, crime scene personnel, emergency room personnel, coroner's office officials, and deputy prosecutors for their steadfast dedication to the innocent. What they see and hear every day, most of us could not endure. They are truly special people. I pray Kinsleigh has found internal peace and for her siblings, who will need a lot of love and care in the coming days, months, and years." Indianapolis City County Councilor Joshua Bain, who represented the part of Indianapolis where Kinsleigh lived, wrote a letter on April 11, 2024 to Eric Miller, the director of the Indiana Department of Child Services. In his letter, Mr. Bain referenced Kinsleigh's death, saying, "The details of this heartbreaking incident have shocked and saddened our community, and it is imperative that we take immediate action to address the circumstances surrounding this tragedy." Mr. Bain requested a third-party investigation into DCS's handling of Kinsleigh's case to understand how the situation occurred and what systemic failures contributed to her death. He also requested that DCS provide detailed information about the robust measures they plan to use to prevent such tragedies in the future. Although DCS said the agency couldn't comment on specific cases, they did respond in a statement. "DCS's absolute top priority is child safety. We are always saddened when a child tragedy occurs. DCS partners with stakeholders from across the state to thoroughly investigate all child deaths in Indiana that involved abuse or neglect." Fox 59 spoke with Mr. Bain, who said,
"It boggles your mind. It makes you sick to your stomach. People clearly need to be held accountable. They need to figure out where they dropped the ball, and it seems like the ball was dropped many times. The fact that, all the documents show that she was 21 pounds. I have a 13-month-old that weighs more than that. You really can't even wrap your head around how any parent could let their child go through that. The court system failed her. The DCS system failed her all throughout her life, and the worst thing we can do now is fail her in her death."
Outside the mobile home where Kinsleigh died, community members left items to memorialize her, including flowers, balloons, toys, and cards. The news station also spoke with Kinsleigh's paternal grandfather, Brian Welty, who said DCS placed Kinsleigh twice into his and his wife's care before reunifying her with Tony.
"It's horrific. It's going to obviously be a memory in my mind for the rest of my life that I'll never be able to shake, that my granddaughter starved to death, and it very easily could have been avoided."
Of his son Bradley's estranged wife, Brian said,
"She's a wicked woman, is all I can say."
Brian's stepsister, Kinsleigh's great-aunt, Carrie Hogan, said,
"This poor little girl had no chance whatsoever. She had a parent who, she wasn't a parent, she was a monster, who failed her in every way."
According to IMPD Officer Thomas Thompson,
"No child or human being should be treated the way she was."
Officer Thompson implored the public to report child abuse they knew about. "The community has to step forward and reach out to us. Help us help these children have a voice." Brian and Carrie told the station that they believed DCS failed Kinsleigh. Brian said of himself and his wife, "We were planning on keeping her, but DCS has their policy of reunification, and that's horrible. Reunification from the get-go is the problem in my eyes, because no matter what the parent does, their goal is reunification." Carrie added, "The system has failed this poor child, and I don't want her death to be in vain. Twice they were taken away for the abuse and neglect, and she just kept getting them back. No one knows why. It's a failed system." To WRTV, Brian said he felt traumatized. "It's horrific. Words can't describe it. You feel guilty to eat sometimes." Brian and his wife, Tricia, felt DCS had let them and Kinsleigh down.
"When she came to us the second time, she was bruised from head to toe. She had clumps
of hair
missing throughout her whole head.
and she was given back.
And she had already tried to starve her to death when she was 3 weeks old. And they gave her back.
Tricia added,
We just don't want her death to be in vain. We want change. We don't want any more kids to have to die because of the failure of the system. It's not right. She was in our home, and she was safe, and she was loved. And she was handed back to her abuser, and she's not here anymore. If the parents aren't going to love and protect them, and the state's not, who's going to protect them?
The abuse was only towards Kinsleigh.
The neglect was them all, but
the neglect,
the physical abuse was Kinsleigh. It wasn't about she didn't want her. She wanted to see Kinsleigh dead. That was her goal.
In 2021, after a welfare check, Brian and Tricia said they were afraid for their granddaughter's life. Brian said,
I pleaded with DCS before that court case, my concerns about all that, every bit of it, and I was ignored.
The Weltys told the reporter that DCS needed to stop focusing so hard on reunification. Tricia said,
Your priority should be the children, their safety. It shouldn't be getting them back if the parent's not the safe person. And they failed her. I just want justice for Kinsleigh. I pray to God that they don't plead this down. I pray every charge sticks.
Kinsleigh's cousin, Kyla Welsh, said of Tony,
As far as I'm concerned, she was not a mother. She was a monster and an abuser, and DCS and our court systems failed us again.
When asked what she would say to DCS if she could, Kyla replied,
Please, please, please stop looking at reunification for every single child. It's not safe for every single child. There needs to be a case-by-case basis. I know Indiana is a reunification state, and we need to have our lawmakers adjust that. This can't happen again.
The family created a GoFundMe to help pay for Kinsleigh's funeral. In the campaign description, Kinsleigh's great-aunt Carrie wrote, She was murdered by a monster who was her so-called mother, Tony McClure, and her boyfriend. The abuse started the day she was born. At 3 weeks old, she and her siblings were removed by DCS and put into foster care and also the care of family. She was malnourished, and they were living in horrific conditions. However, due to a failed DCS system, she was placed back into her mother's care, and then was removed once again at a later time and sent back into foster care. But due to DCS not presenting the case properly along with the evidence, the courts had no choice but to give her back to her mother again and to dismiss the case. Since October of 2023, people called DCS to report abuse, but nothing was done. Her family and I are hoping to give her a funeral and headstone befitting of a princess. The GoFundMe campaign raised almost $7,000. IMPD Lieutenant Shane Foley said about Kinsleigh's death, With this being Child Abuse Prevention Month, we're hoping that it will bring more awareness so that people can please contact others who can help protect our youth who can't protect themselves. The IMPD told the public to watch out for signs of child abuse and neglect, including poor hygiene, suspicious injuries, malnourishment, excessive fatigue, aggressive behavior, and withdrawn behavior. Time for another quick sponsor break. Also on April 12, 2024, detectives interviewed Tony's maternal grandmother, Jackie Burke, who said that when Kinsleigh died, Ryan called everyone and told them she had drowned in the bathtub. She had noticed Kinsleigh looking unwell around Christmas 2023, as if she needed vitamins, but Kinsleigh's baggy clothing made it hard to determine her physical condition. Tony's sister, Lainey, also told police she had told Tony at Christmas that Kinsleigh needed vitamins and gave Tony ham and turkey to feed Kinsleigh because she needed the protein. Jackie told the detectives that her granddaughter, Tony, was a monster who deserved the death penalty. She said any number of family members would have cared for Kinsleigh, but Tony never asked anyone. Detectives then interviewed Tony's mother, Tammy Halsey, who was born on July 23, 1970. Tammy corroborated the story that Ryan called family members, including herself, on April 9th, telling them Kinsleigh died in the bathtub. Tammy said she believed that story until she read in the media what Tony had admitted to police. During her interview, detectives noted that it seemed Tammy was trying to play down her involvement in the situation leading up to and surrounding her granddaughter's death. When shown several photos of Kinsleigh's body in the hospital, Tammy didn't seem shocked, saying she should have done something when she first noticed Kinsleigh wasn't well. Tammy said that Kinsleigh was last completely normal around October 2023, but her physical condition grew steadily worse over the prior 5 or 6 months. She mentioned that when DCS showed up at their Mooresville home 4 times looking for Tony and Kinsleigh, Tammy didn't help the agency find her daughter and granddaughter. Tammy said she saw Kinsleigh on April 7, 2024, at a party at Kinsleigh's Aunt Laney's home in the same mobile home park where Tony and Ryan lived. As soon as they arrived at the party, Tammy said, Tony made Kinsleigh stand in the corner, saying she was in trouble. Kinsleigh stood, facing the corner, the entire time she was at the party, Tammy said. The next day, April 8th, the family gathered at Tammy's house to watch the total solar eclipse. However, Tony again made Kinsleigh stand in the corner for several hours. Kinsleigh didn't even get to see the eclipse. Laney would later tell detectives that she didn't see Kinsleigh either at the party at her house or the eclipse gathering at her mother's. Tammy said she watched Kinsleigh at Tony's house twice. Once when Tony and Ryan traveled to South Carolina right after Christmas 2023, and once when Tony gave birth to her newborn in March 2024. Tammy looked inside the closet during the first visit, noting fecal matter on the wall. Tony told her that because Kinsleigh escaped the closet, she had placed a baby gate inside the closet to keep Kinsleigh from reaching the door. During the summer of 2023, Tammy said, she watched Kinsleigh a lot, including overnights. To keep Kinsleigh from getting out of bed to eat or drink, she duct taped her granddaughter's legs to the bed covers. When that wasn't effective, she tried putting more duct tape over the top of her shoulders, upper legs, and lower legs. Eventually, because that didn't work either, Tammy said she ripped up the tape and gave up. Tammy told detectives that she was aware of her granddaughter's abuse, knew it was wrong, and admitted she should have done something to stop it. She knew from Tony that Kinsleigh spent the vast majority of her time in the closet, and she thought about calling the police, but she didn't because she didn't want her daughter to lose custody of her other kids. She told investigators she should receive whatever punishment because she did not do anything. On Friday, April 12, 2024, after her interview, 53-year-old Tammy Halsey was arrested on a preliminary charge of neglect of a dependent. Her cell phone was seized as evidence. Adding a hint of awful irony to the case, Tammy worked as the kitchen manager at an elementary school in nearby Plainfield, Indiana. This woman fed other people's kids for a living, but let her own granddaughter starve to death in a closet. According to a probable cause affidavit, Tammy's boss, the director of the district food services team, told Detective Nicholson on April 12th that Tammy told a subordinate that when Kinsleigh frequently slept over at her house, Tammy had to tie her granddaughter to the bed so Tammy could sleep, because otherwise Kinsleigh would get up to eat and drink during the night. The subordinate reported that Tammy said things like this about Kinsleigh from August through October 2023, so we know the abuse was going on at least that far back and probably longer. When detectives later interviewed the subordinate, she confirmed that Tammy told her about tying up her granddaughter, who Tammy had told the woman was hyper and exhibited ADHD-like behaviors. As far as I've been able to determine, Kinsleigh was never diagnosed with ADHD. Sarah Gessel was Kinsleigh and her brother's foster mother in 2018, 2020, and for 5 months in 2021. Remembering the little girl who brought so much love into her home, Sarah told 13 WTHR,
"We weren't the only ones who loved her. There were other people. There were so many people that loved her and her brother. And it just was so preventable."
Because the victim was under 12, the murder occurred while she was confined, and she was tortured, prosecutor Ryan Mears planned to ask the court to enhance Tony's sentence to life in prison without parole. The prosecutor told a reporter,
"What we are alleging is basically that there were proactive steps taken to prevent that child from gaining access to food and getting access to basic nourishment. And what we are alleging is that that child spent the vast majority of their life confined to a closet, where there was a baby gate set up, where there was a dresser put in front of the door to restrict that child's access and movement.
Kinsleigh suffered an unimaginable fate at the hands of those who were supposed to raise and protect her. Today, we are on a path towards accountability for those who failed Kinsleigh, thanks to the detectives and deputy prosecutors who have worked diligently together around the clock for the past several days. Prosecutor Mears also said that DCS had been at the mobile home the same day Kinsleigh died. The reporter asked if those handling the family's case could face charges, and the prosecutor replied,
Certainly it's difficult for us to figure out or maybe understand when DCS is in the home that day and seeing the physical condition of that child when they arrived at the hospital. Certainly I think raises a lot of questions.
The prosecutor noted, all this child needed was a safe place to sleep and food. When police spoke with a man who was Ryan's cousin, friend, and co-worker, the man told them he stayed the night a few times when the family first moved into the mobile home on Denver Drive. He was aware that Kinsleigh was in the closet, but he didn't ask why. It's mind-boggling. Also on April 13th, Kinsleigh's father, Bradley Welty, traveled to Noblesville to visit Little Angel Gowns, a nonprofit organization that uses donated wedding dresses to create beautiful infant burial gowns. The organization provides their gowns as gifts to families grieving the loss of their little ones. Bradley told the charity that Kinsleigh was such a vibrant little girl that he wanted some color for her, and they guided him toward a stunning, lacy white burial gown with lilac purple accents, a bonnet, and other accessories. I'll include a photo of the gown in the Facebook photo album for this episode. Kinsleigh's funeral was held on Tuesday, April 16th. She was laid to rest at East Hill Cemetery in Morgantown, Indiana. Tammy initially appeared in court on Tuesday, April 16th, where Judge Mark Stoner, who is presiding over all three defendants' cases, advised Tammy of her charge as well as a no-contact order against her for several witnesses. Regarding the case, Prosecutor Mears said,
There was a lot of conversation between both mom and grandma about what was going on with this child and what was the best way to deal with some of these issues. And I think that's the part that's so disheartening, is that nobody stepped in and said, this child needs help. What can we do to try to help this child? And the thing that you consistently see and hear in these conversations is people are concerned about their own well-being. Well, I might get in trouble if someone is aware of this. DCS was at the house the day that this child passed away. And they were not aware, or when they made that house visit, they certainly didn't uncover or appreciate what was going on inside the house. And so I think that poses a lot of questions for us as a prosecutor's office in terms of what systems were in place. Did those systems necessarily protect that child? And then what can be done in the future?
Speaking with Court TV, the prosecutor said,
Well, I think that's what's so disheartening about this case, is that everything we know about Kinsleigh and her life is that she lived a very difficult life at a very young age. And what we have learned through, literally since she was born is that she suffered at the hands of her parents. And what we are alleging in the probable cause affidavit is that this was a repeated pattern of behavior, where this just wasn't one isolated incident or one momentary lapse in judgment, that we had a consistent pattern where she wasn't receiving proper nourishment. We're alleging that in addition to that lack of proper nourishment, she was essentially confined to a closet where she didn't have access to use the restroom. She didn't have access to food. And really, Kinsleigh suffered for most of her life because the parents and the people that should have been there to protect her, what we are alleging is that not only did they let her down, but they made her circumstances way worse than what it needed to be. And when law enforcement finally got involved, the scene that they arrived to was a 5-year-old child who weighed approximately 20 pounds. And that obviously took place over a significant period of time. And that's why we were in a position to file the charges that we filed against the 3 individuals that were involved.
Tony McClure and Ryan Smith also made their initial court appearances on April 16th before Judge Stoner, who read Ryan's charges to him and advised him of the potential penalties for each.
All right, Mr. Smith, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see what the state has charged you with neglect of a dependent resulting in death as a level 1 felony. So, Mr. Smith, in count 1, the state's charged you with neglect of a dependent resulting in death, a level 1 felony. That carries a potential penalty of up to 40 years in prison. Count 2 is also neglect of a dependent resulting in death. That also carries a potential penalty of up to 40 years in prison. Count 3 is neglect of a dependent resulting in death. Also carries a potential penalty of up to 40 years in prison. Count 4 is criminal confinement. That's a level 3 felony. That carries a potential penalty of up to 16 years in prison. And Mr. Smith, all felonies carry fines of up to $10,000. Now, the court will enter an automatic plea of not guilty for you. That'll become a formal plea in 20 days unless you change your plea after you've had a chance to talk to a lawyer.
Next, the judge told Tony,
All right, Ms. McClure, good morning. I'm Judge Stoner. I'll be handling your case. You are here for your initial hearing. I'm here to tell you what the state has charged you with. I'll enter a not guilty plea for you, and I'll advise you of your rights. First, you should have a copy of the charges against you. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the state's charged you with count 1 murder. That carries a potential penalty up to 65 years in prison. The court should further advise you that the state has filed an additional pleading on that murder count, requesting that you receive life imprisonment without parole. The murder charge would carry a maximum penalty up to 65 years. If at some point you're convicted of the murder charge and if the state wishes to proceed further, if the state can prove aggravating circumstances that a jury or a trier of fact would have to find, you could be confined to the Department of Correction for the rest of your life. That's on count 1. On count 2, the state's charged you with criminal confinement as a level 3 felony. That carries a potential penalty of up to 16 years in prison. Count 3 is battery on a person less than 14 years old. That's a level 6 felony, and that carries a potential penalty of up to 2.5 years in prison. And Ms. McClure, all felonies carry fines of up to $10,000.
No contact orders were issued against both Ryan and Tony for 15 unnamed prosecution witnesses in the case, although 2 of Ryan's were later dismissed. Both defendants were appointed public defenders. Tony is represented by Deanna Martin and Sharif Mansour, while Ryan's attorney is Jacob Rigney. After her initial court hearing, instead of neglect of a dependent, prosecutors formally charged Tammy with confinement of a victim under 14. Prior to Tammy's arrest, investigators unearthed years' worth of Facebook messages exchanged between Tony and her mother, in which they referred to Kinsleigh by various derogatory nicknames such as evil, demon, dipshit, dummy, chunkers, and heifer. Pot, meat, kettle. According to court documents, in these messages, the 2 women discussed keeping Kinsleigh in the closet, locking the fridge and cabinets so she couldn't eat and drink items without permission, limiting her food intake or preventing her from eating entirely, and hiding her from DCS. In an exchange on May 31, 2022, almost 2 years before Kinsleigh's death, Tony told her mother that the 3-year-old had escaped the closet where she was usually forced to stay. Grandma of the Year replied,
"Put something in front so she can't push the door."
Tony said she had, and Tammy responded,
"You're going to have to keep her home one weekend just to show her you mean business."
Apropos of nothing, Tony wrote back,
"She hates being smacked on her belly, just so you know."
Tammy replied,
"Oh, I know."
A year later, on May 1, 2023, Tony sent Tammy a photo of Kinsleigh crouching beside a couch. Tammy asked,
"Did you not wrap her ass up?"
Tony replied,
"Yes, I did. She got out."
Tammy wrote back,
"Damn, do it tighter."
On July 7, 2023, Tony asked her mother to watch Kinsleigh, but Tammy replied that she couldn't because she had to work on Monday. Tony begged,
"Do your duct tape thing. Sleep. I won't ask again."
On October 6, 2023, Tony wrote that Kinsleigh broke the door lock and pushed feces under the couch, to which Tammy replied,
"Tie her fucking ass up."
A few days later, Tony asked Tammy again to watch Kinsleigh, pleading with her to
"Take one for the freaking team, man. You do your method, and it works. Can't do that here. I'll clean her up first.
She ended the message with several emojis, including laughing faces and a skull and crossbones. On March 22, 2024, Tammy told Tony that DCS had dropped in. Tony replied,
"Oh, Jesus Christ. I guess we need to figure out a day where you can take Kinsleigh and I can deal with it, but I really just don't want to."
The last message mentioned in the probable cause affidavit was dated April 9th, the day Kinsleigh died. That day, Tony wrote,
"So, I don't have much in my fridge or my cabinets, but DCS is coming out today. Call me on your lunch."
Through the messages, investigators confirmed that Tony and Ryan would leave Kinsleigh with her grandmother for several hours to several days at a time, sometimes so they could run errands or take the other children to events and family functions without Kinsleigh. On May 28th, prosecutors filed a motion to dismiss Tammy's charge, which Judge Stoner granted because the state had filed several new charges against Tammy instead. Tammy is currently charged with 2 counts of neglect of a dependent resulting in death, a first-degree felony, 2 counts of neglect of a dependent resulting in serious bodily injury, a third-degree felony, 1 count of neglect of a dependent resulting in bodily injury, a 5th-degree felony, and 1 count of failure to make a child abuse or neglect report, a Class B misdemeanor. Tammy's 16 no-contact orders were dismissed along with her original charge, but 6 new ones were issued instead. Her bond was set at $100,000, but she is still being held in the Marion County Jail, as is her daughter. Tammy is represented by court-appointed public defender Eric Henricks. After Tammy's charges were upgraded, prosecutor Ryan Mears said in a news release, "These charges are a direct result of law enforcement's commitment to justice for Kinsleigh. We will continue to pursue leads and information and file charges, if warranted, as the investigation continues." On Sunday, April 28, 2024, Kinsleigh's family members and many others gathered on behalf of Justice for Kinsleigh on the steps of the Indiana State House, peacefully demanding DCS reform and justice for all of the innocent Indiana children it has failed. Gina Hullett also attended and spoke at the event. I've spoken to Gina a number of times on the podcast about her second cousin and foster son, Judah Morgan, who was another child DCS failed via reconciliation. Kinsleigh's great-aunt Carrie also spoke, saying of Kinsleigh, "She will forever be 5 years old due to the abuse, starvation, and torture from those who were supposed to love and protect her at all costs. This was preventable, and the public deserves to know." When Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb learned of Kinsleigh's death, he shared his condolences, calling it gut-wrenching, but was hesitant to blame Kinsleigh's death entirely on DCS, saying, "It's easy to blame others for horrific instances that happened in someone else's home. It's the worst day imaginable for all who are concerned."
No one takes this more seriously than DCS and the employees there. They are dealt the toughest cases imaginable. And they will continue to do their job and follow the law. They will follow up. They unfortunately can't always predict evil from striking, but they're going to continue to do their job, and they have been.
Respectfully, I disagree. Child protection agencies everywhere fail children all the time, but Indiana's in particular seems to be, in my, again, non-expert opinion, one of the worst. I'm sure most of the people who work for DCS take their job seriously, follow up, and do their very best. It's unfortunate that anyone works for child protection agencies who doesn't do their best, but it's those cases in which kids are irreparably harmed or killed in any number of preventable ways. Systemically as well, there are clearly problems. Reunification being the goal in every case is one such problem. Kinsleigh's grandpa, Brian Welty, said at the event,
"Wake up! Our kids are dying because of your policies." She would be alive today if they would have left her in my care. And that's exactly where she should have been. When I got them kids in my hands, and I'm telling you, I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to protect you. Sorry, I got to give you back to the state. Go back to your mom. Yeah, it's so gut-wrenching. That's the worst day of my life until the day she died.
Carrie said,
They keep putting these kids back into the custody of these abusers, and it's costing them their lives. There's a long list of kids that the state has failed, and it's got to stop. And this here hit home. This is my great niece. So, of course, I'm passionate about it, and I am demanding change, and I'm not going to shut up, and I'm not going to be quiet, and I'm going to be loud until that change happens. I'm not giving up. I just pray for change. That's all I can ask for. We've got to get our legislators, our senators on board and start making up laws to protect these babies, these innocent lives who are given back over and over and over again.
Don't get me wrong. Kinsleigh's death was 100% the fault of those directly involved in her abuse, namely Tony McClure, Ryan Smith, and Tammy Halsey. However, when someone fails to perform their duties, that failure leads to a child's death, and that death could easily have been prevented if that person had performed their duties. They should face consequences as well. No one should be immune from prosecution if their negligence or laziness leads to yet another child dying who didn't have to. The governor did vow to go to battle for more resources to support DCS. It's a start. Both Ryan and Tammy's jury trials, whether combined or not, are scheduled to begin on November 18, 2024. Tony's defense team has filed a motion to sever, meaning her case would be tried separately from Ryan and Tammy's. Voir dire for Tony's jury trial is scheduled to begin on September 15, 2025. On September 25, 2024, Bradley Welty filed for divorce from Tony McClure. The couple was married in Morgan County, Indiana on April 20, 2017, and had been separated for years. After this short sponsor break, you'll hear my recent conversation with Kinsleigh's great-aunt, Carrie Hogan. Today I'm speaking with Kinsleigh's great-aunt, Carrie Hogan. Thank you so much for joining me, Carrie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So you were Kinsleigh's paternal great-aunt.
Correct. I am Brad's step-aunt.
Okay. He's got the two boys, one older and one younger, with Tony. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So there were altogether 4 kids in the house at the time?
Tony had 2 other boys that were older. One lived with Grandpa. I'm not sure about the other one. And the one that lived with Grandpa would come over after school to their house. So he didn't technically live there, but the kids that lived there were just Tony and Brad's 3.
And then Ryan and Tony had their own baby shortly before this happened.
Yes.
Okay. When was the last time that you or the family saw Kinsleigh?
For myself, it was when she was a baby. And well, unfortunately, with their lifestyle, I just didn't have a big relationship with them.
Yeah.
Just because I was still raising my own kids and just didn't want that kind of lifestyle around me. So I hadn't seen her since she was fairly young. And then Brian and Trish, the last time they saw her, I think she was 2, which is her paternal grandparents. And Brian and Trish was involved a little bit after they got her the last time and was given back to Tony. She would invite him to birthday parties, but when they started saying things about the way she looked or how dirty, then they quit calling and quit letting her see them. So that's why they hadn't seen him either, not for lack of trying.
Yeah, of course.
They pretty much moved around a lot and was keeping him from him.
Yeah, I wish I could say that's an unusual thing to hear, but it's really such a common theme. There's so many commonalities among all these cases. The one thing I noticed was, and I know you know Gina Hullett, I feel like part of the reason, at least, that Tony felt no connection at all with Kinsleigh is because DCS removed her as an infant, just like happened with Judah.
To be honest, I really don't know if that has a lot to do with it or if she just never had a maternal connection from the day she was born. I don't even know if it even has anything to do with DCS, in all honesty. She was always okay with her boys. Not that she took the best care of them, but it was always, ever since she had Kinsleigh, it was always just kind of had it out for her. So I just think there was never that maternal bond when she had her. I could be completely off, but that's my gut feeling and my belief.
Yeah.
She just never developed that.
There are definitely some people out there who shouldn't have kids in the first place. I think we've all seen that.
Absolutely. My biggest thing was I would love to have gotten to know her. Brian and Trish had her, and I got to see her at my nephew's graduation. And she was little then. She had some health issues. She had a feeding tube and things like that, but she was thriving. She was doing so well. And I would love to have had the opportunity to get to know her. I feel like had Brian and Trish had her, I would have still been able to see her at family functions and things like that and still been somewhat a part of her life. But my biggest thing is Her life was stolen from her. It was taken from her by a monster, but not just one. There was 2 other people involved that I consider monsters just the same. Tony's getting the ultimate murder charge, but the other 2 to me are just as guilty. The grandmother, the boyfriend, they were there. They knew exactly what was going on. And I know to file murder charges, there's all these parameters that have to be met. But to me, they were living there. They knew what was going on. They refused to get help because supposedly Ryan loved her and refused the help. To me, you're just as guilty. I'm sorry. I feel like they all should be charged with murder because they all had a hand in it and they knew what was going to happen and chose to do nothing.
It's so unfathomable, but I guess it's a kind of a bystander effect as far as that goes. They all thought, well, some other people are involved and that lessens their responsibility somehow. But I think you're right. They knew what was going on and they had the power to do something. And they even thought about doing something and didn't. And then this poor little girl living in the closet, it breaks my heart thinking about it. She suffered so much, but thank goodness at least she's out of that misery now.
Absolutely. Yep. She's in the hands of Jesus. But the sad thing is, too, when you talk about that, her brothers would always say she's bad. That's why she's in there. The parent brainwashed them to think that's why she was in there, not knowing exactly what she was dealing with or what she was going through. I can't imagine. I know when I'm hungry, I'm ready to eat. I can't imagine being 5 years old, locked in a closet, no drink, no food, no light, no nothing. And not only that, you're covered in your own feces. You're being eaten alive by lice that was all over her body per the coroner's report. It's absolutely disgusting and despicable that anyone could allow something like that to happen to an innocent child, but to know the pain and the torture and, in all honesty, the pure hell that poor child went through, it literally tears me apart. I think about it and I just want to cry. I have grandbabies her age. I could never even fathom doing something so heinous to one of them. It's devastating. It's immoral. There's no words.
Exactly.
It just makes you want to hurt somebody so bad. You want to just be kind to everybody and do things the right way. But then you hear about this and you see this and you're reading the reports and you just want to kill her mother. Not that I would, but I just
oh, but you're not wrong.
Oh my gosh. You just want to wrap your hands around her neck and be like, why, for God's sake, would you even do such a thing? Number one, there was family that would take her. There was foster care that she was in, but the state kept giving her back to Tony over and over again. It's utterly ridiculous. That's where the system is flawed. These kids need a voice. They need help. They keep being returned to these abusers. And the end result is pretty much what happened. And even in the case of Judah, it just happens too often and it needs to stop. DCS needs to be held accountable. Number one, they were in the home the day she died. They were there and inquired about her. Oh, she's with her grandmother. Instead of doing that, make them produce the child. You go and get a court order that says you bring this child to me right now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Get grandma on the phone and get grandma here. I want to see that child. Had that been done, not to say that Kinsleigh would have still died that day or not, but maybe there was an inkling of a chance that maybe she could have survived had she been rushed to the hospital. Then I think she was too far emaciated and gone, but we don't know. Maybe there was a chance that she could have survived. That social worker decided to be like, oh, okay, she's not here. She's not here. End of story. They need to push. They need to change their laws. They need to push to see those kids, regardless.
Right. Agreed. Even if they weren't there to see her specifically, they should lay eyes on all the kids. And if they had said, which they did, that they had been wanting to see her for the last few visits and Tony never produced her, well, get a court order. Something has to be done. You've got to be able to see these kids. Otherwise, they're falling through the cracks, like they say. And this is the awful effect of it.
That's it. Yeah. I feel like DCS needs to be held accountable because they're the ones that are allowing this. I know they're overworked and their caseload is heavy and they're short-staffed and this and that. Everybody's short-staffed. I work in medical. We are short-staffed. It happens, but you have to still do your job. Just do your job. And I feel like if they would have done their job, maybe there was still a chance. If they would have laid eyes on her months and months ago, that child would have had an opportunity to maybe overcome the death sentence pretty much she had. So I get so angry. I get so frustrated. I get so hurt and heartbroken that she's not the only one. And
no, exactly.
How many kids have to die on Indiana DCS watch before they make a stand and stand up and say enough's enough? We're going to get quality people in here that want to do their job versus just saying, well, today's just another day. I'm ready to go home. I put my 8 hours in. I'm done. Sometimes it doesn't work like that. Sometimes it takes longer than 8 hours. And especially when it's the innocent children whose lives are at stake, more needs to be done.
Yeah, it's life or death. It's more than just punching a clock.
Absolutely. It's sickening. It's death that doesn't need to happen. I mean, these kids die a horrible death. I can't imagine, like I said, being 5 years old, starved to death, covered in feces, begging for food and drink and not getting anything. I can't imagine poor little Judah being beaten so severely that it killed him. I get goosebumps. I get tears in my eyes. I get so much rage and anger inside of me that they keep putting these poor babies back with these people. And with Kinsleigh, she didn't have to go back. The state attorney for DCS did not present the case correctly when she was 2, when my stepbrother and his wife had them. The photographs that they had of Kinsleigh were not labeled correctly or were not labeled at all. Other evidence was not submitted correctly. The judge had no choice but to drop the case.
The laziness involved in that, how hard is it to just present the evidence as it actually is?
Absolutely. It's doing your job. And the judge even told them, come back the next day. I want you to fix what you're missing here, what's not right, correct it, come back tomorrow, and let's do it again. Same thing. Nothing was changed. Well, why not hold that attorney in contempt for not doing their job? This was a child's life that was on the line. And had it went the right way and they'd done their job, they might still be with Brian and Trisha, their grandparents, and Kinsleigh might be alive today. But no, the judge had no choice but to throw it out. And he even said, he or she, I can't remember which, if it was a female or male judge, had said that he had grave concerns for those children going back, but he had no choice. And even the CASA person that was representing Kinsleigh there also said she had grave concerns for Kinsleigh going back to her, well, for all the children, but mostly for Kinsleigh, because she's the one that was always singled out, grave concerns for her going back.
Right.
But guess what? They got returned.
Yeah, and I imagine the attorney probably had government immunity at this point. So
absolutely. Yeah. And the thing was, all Tony had to do was say, I don't want her. They want her that bad. Let him have her. Here, I'm signing my rights away. No, there was no talk of that. And it's like, why would they not push for that? She didn't want her. She wanted to cause the most horrific pain to her and starve her to death.
Yeah, it's almost like that was her end game anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Because she knew that what she was doing, as she said, was going to kill her daughter at some point.
Yeah. And is that premeditated?
Yes. I don't understand why that's not on the table.
I know there's all kinds of stipulations with filing charges because I asked the prosecutor's office. I called him out and I asked him. I wanted to know. And I understand that things have to fall under such and such things. I get all that. But when you sat there and admit you knew she was going to die, you knew what you were doing and you knew the end result, to me, that's premeditated.
Yes, definitely. I feel like this may not go to trial, considering the interrogations and all of the admissions. Mm-hmm. At some point, I think she'll plead out. But either way, it needs to come to a resolution so that the family doesn't have to get dragged through years of court process. It's so painful and really frustrating for all of you. So one way or the other, I hope that Kinsleigh gets justice in the end.
That's all we want. We want justice. We also want reform, DCS reform.
Yes.
I mean, reunification is killing our children. And reunification may be good for one or a few, but it's not what's good for one is good for all.
Right.
It's completely different. Different situations call for different things. And to me, reunification should not be, they should not fight so hard for that with every single one of them. They should fight for that for the ones that truly are getting help to better themselves and doing right by their children. She never done right by her. She was taken multiple times over and over, and you continued to do the same things, but you kept getting opportunities to get her back. Reunification is not the answer. I'm sorry. It is just not the answer. DCS needs to take a very hard look at that.
Agreed. In every state, it is the priority. And like you said, it can't be just a blanket policy. It has to be individual cases. Too many kids that I've talked about have gone through the same thing where they never bonded with their parent or they were taken away and they had the chance at a life and it got taken away from them because they were put right back in that house.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the most horrific thing they can do. There were so many signs, so many warnings, so many things that said this is not good. This is not good, not only for her, but for so many other children. You know, Judah, I can't even go on about all the others. There's been multiple that's died after Kinsleigh.
Yeah.
So it's not just, yes, I'm fighting for Kinsleigh's rights, but I'm also fighting for every child out there. They should have rights. They're a voice that's never heard. Why are they not heard? They need to be heard. And, you know, that's what DCS is for. That's what the CASAs are for. That's what the guardian ad litems are for. They're supposed to be their voices. And these poor children aren't being heard.
Exactly. And I'm thankful that Gina, in all of her grief, she has really pushed for all of these laws to be changed. And I know she's made some actual changes that really will make a difference. So I'm hoping that she'll be able to keep doing that and guide your family to do the same. I know she knows an awful lot that she wishes she didn't, but
yeah. I just can't imagine being put in that situation. I mean, Kinsleigh is not my blood, but by all means, she's still my niece, and it still hurt just the same.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the pain that someone that had that child in their home for that length of time, and then they give him back. And the sad thing is, in Judah's case, I believe, if I remember correctly, he was with them for so long that they should have been able to adopt him.
Yes.
Instead, there was a mistake or something happened within the courts and they forgot to file whatever it is to where you lose all rights, like didn't get filed when it was supposed to, or something happened. Somebody dropped the ball and then they had no choice but to give him back.
Right.
There's another story. It could have been prevented. Had the right measures been taken by DCS, just do your job, he would have still been alive as well. He'd still be with his loving family, his real mommy and daddy. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's just unfathomable that a child's life comes down to a clerical error, completely unnecessary.
In a lot of cases, that's what it is. Just like a clerical error. In his case, there was a court error from a so-called attorney, who's probably suffered no ramifications from it at all. Oh, believe you me, I called that office, went to speak with them. I never got a call back.
Of course. Yeah.
But I was fired up hot. I don't understand. If I don't do my job, I'm going to get fired.
Right. You would think it would be the same across the board, but no.
Exactly.
They don't pay these people enough. They don't pay the people who really need to have more longevity in their positions because they just shuffle in and out. It's like a revolving door with these agencies. And who's going to spend all the time caring about these kids that actually needs to be done? These people aren't, because they have to handle 30 cases all at once.
Well, I say put me in charge. I ran dental practices. Right now I'm working in HR for a senior life community. Put me in charge. I'll be more than happy. I'll go in there and whip them people into shape. There is no reason for anybody not to do their job, especially in the situation that these kids are in. They are dependent upon DCS, and DCS fails every time. There's no right or wrong answer, but I'm telling you, if you just do your job and you have the eyes on them children like they should, and things are being done like they should be, there's no reason any child should have to die like that. I mean, yes, you're still going to have instances where things happen.
Right. Sure.
Unfortunately, that's the evilness of the world nowadays. But just to keep giving them back over and over, there's things that can prevent that. And Kinsleigh, it was almost prevented for Kinsleigh. If the attorney would have just done his job, it would have happened. Brian and Trish would have gladly adopted them children. I know for a fact. It's just asinine nuts to think about. You're an attorney and you're not doing your job. I don't care if you're an attorney, a doctor, in HR, who you are, to just do your job. It's pretty simple just to do the job. What you're hired for is to protect these babies. Then you do it at all costs, because one day this could be somebody in your family.
Exactly.
And how would they feel if something like that happened to them? Well, you bet your butt it wouldn't happen to them, because they would be doing their job to protect them, right? Why not do that for every child?
Right. I don't know if it's a lack of empathy or not enough time in the day to care about everyone. It's so odd to me. I can't even fathom it.
And that is a tough job. I'm not saying they have an easy job. I imagine it's terrifying. It's excruciating a lot of times. I'm sure their job is completely, utterly insane. But the fact of the matter is, if you're asking for a child and you're not laying eyes on that child, every time you've been there to ask and she's never there, I call BS. You can get a court order to produce that kid. And that's what should be done. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
No, she shouldn't have suffered for at least 8 months or longer.
Oh, yeah.
In that closet.
No, and they're saying in November before Thanksgiving is when it happened, or after Thanksgiving. But who knows? They've lied about so much. Is that true? Are they telling the truth? Or are they just lying a little bit to give them a little bit of protection, that it wasn't that long? I don't know. Who knows? I don't trust anything they say. And the grandma lies for them too, saying, oh, we went to a party at Thanksgiving, or the eclipse party. That's one that really chaps my butt, is, pardon my French.
No, that's okay.
They threw that out there that Kinsleigh was there. That was the day before she died. If Kinsleigh was that emaciated, there was no way they could have got her out of that closet, cleaned her up, taken her to the eclipse party, and have her stand in a corner the whole time they were there because she was bad. There's no way. If she was that emaciated, died the next day, that baby would not have been able to stand up in that corner. It's all lies. They're all covering for each other.
Absolutely.
I don't believe anything they say.
Yeah, there's no way she was able to be there and no one thought, hey, there's something wrong looking at this 21-pound 5-year-old covered in lice. No way. Absolutely not.
No. And she chopped all of her hair off. So when the funeral home went and picked her up from the corner, he called me and told me they may want to get a cap if they're planning on some kind of bonnet or something for, because her hair is very, very, very short.
Yeah.
And so that's when they opted to say, we want to have the closed casket because we don't want to remember her that way.
I saw the beautiful gown that Bradley got for her, but it is from an organization that makes these gowns for infants. And she was small enough to fit into one of these. And it just hurts to think about.
Oh, it's sickening, is it not? It's just, It's sickening. Yeah, that's a beautiful organization where they take wedding gowns and cut them up and put them into infant gowns to bury babies, pretty much.
Exactly.
And we know the person at the funeral home personally, and he did tell me, he said he's got the smallest casket he could get, but she was definitely dwarfed in it. She was very, very, very tiny. And that just broke my heart. I just imagine being a mother of my 4 babies or even my 8 grandkids to lock them in a closet and starve them and not give them food when they're begging and pleading for it. And to watch them go through the weight loss she went through and everything else she's went through. How in the world could you sit there and look at your child in the face? I just can't believe it. And she had interactions with her because she would get out of the closet. She made notes about that where she did get out of a closet. So you are looking at your child, what she looks like. Yeah. How could it not play on your heartstrings and know that what you're doing is completely evil and vile and wrong?
She did. She treated everything about it so callously, saying, oh, she was always asking for food and drinks. And that was her slogan. What is wrong with you?
Your God, I would be begging for it too. Even now at this age, if I was being starved, I would be begging for food. And a child, it's even worse because they haven't lived their life. They don't know why they're being treated this way. Maybe she had that mentality. I'm a bad little girl. It just breaks my heart. Did she die thinking she was bad? That's what hurts really bad too. They're constantly telling her she's bad. Oh, she's in the closet because she's bad. She's standing in the corner because she's bad. She can't eat because she's bad. And did she die thinking she was just a bad little girl when she was just really a precious little thing that just didn't have a chance?
Exactly. It's awful to think about. And yeah, that happens an awful lot where that's exactly what they tell the targeted children. No one loves you, and no, you're not going back to your grandparents. They don't want you, and awful things like that just aren't true. But the kids can't possibly know that. I have to hope that there's an afterlife and that she knows now how loved she is.
I truly believe in that. Yeah. She was greeted by, my brother passed away in 2018. I guarantee it, he had his arms open for a big hug from her because I don't think she walked in there alone. She walked in with family around her, and I definitely believe in the afterlife. I believe there is a heaven, and I truly believe she's there.
Yeah, she belongs there. That's for sure.
Yes, she does.
Now for one last sponsor break. And her brothers, I really hope they're getting the help that they need, because that's an awful lot of trauma, especially if they were told she's bad. And that's what they said during their interviews, that she was bad and that's why she was punished. But they're going to need a lot of help to overcome what their mother did to them.
Yes, they are. And I do know that my brother has obtained counsel. They are trying to get the boys, is my understanding, and get them out of the foster care system. I think that would be the best place for them. Not to say the foster care system, there are good and there are bad. Maybe they are with a family that's truly loving and caring, but I feel like nobody cares for your children the way a parent or grandparent should. But I know Bride and Trish would give them the life that they truly deserve. And it does make you worried. Are they getting the help they need? Do they understand the ramifications of everything that's happened? Do they understand that their mom's a murderer? Not that you would want them to know that, but do they understand why they're not going to see her, or why this or why that? But even behind bars, she still has rights.
Yeah, more than I think Kinsleigh had. Unbelievable. Yeah, so, I'm sure she's just having a great time in there.
I've heard that people have kind of been beating on her a little bit, which I think is great.
It doesn't bother me to hear that.
Nope. There's a friend that I went to school with that knows a jailer that works downtown, and they made comment that she's getting her share of beatings. So, what? What comes around goes around.
Exactly. Just hopefully they don't do too much damage, at least until after the conviction, because
exactly. Yeah.
Make sure she's still fit for trial by that time. And
But life in prison would be too good for her. She still gets 3 square meals a day. She can get an education if she chose to. She can still watch TV. They have TV. They have weight rooms. They have libraries. She's still living a good life in there when she shouldn't have that. Kinsleigh didn't get that. Why should she?
No, her cell is bigger than the confinement that she put Kinsleigh into, and that seems unfair. We can't do an eye for an eye, but sometimes you really want to.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And I do understand you can't always live that way, but a lot of people don't believe in the death penalty. But I feel like every situation should be evaluated for it.
I don't personally believe in it just because of wrongful convictions, but if it's going to exist, this is the kind of case that it should be applied to.
100%. Yes.
It's just so much cruelty all in one place, and 3 people to be involved and possibly more. I mean, I think I've read that they're still investigating and they're not ruling out other people. And I think that's what the prosecutor had said. So who knows who was all involved and who knew about it.
Yeah. Well, the neighbors had even witnessed, one of the neighbors reached out to me in the mobile home community stating that they had the eclipse party right there at their house. They did not go to where, I think it was Tammy's mom or her sisters or something.
It was Lainey, right? And she lived in that mobile home park. She lived right there.
Yeah. They said they seen them all out in the street, but they never saw Kinsleigh. And they never saw Kinsleigh coming and going. They, and the neighbors said, we were outside quite a bit. We have kids, and her boys would interact. And even Ryan's daughter, the boyfriend, his daughter would come there.
He had an older daughter, older than Kinsleigh, or around the same age, I think.
Either around the same age or maybe a little older, but she was well fed.
I'm sure.
But, she even played with the neighbors. They would see her out there, but they never saw Kinsleigh.
Yeah. It really is a shame that she just basically was a ghost to everyone who didn't know she existed there.
That's right. Yep.
You'd hope these are rare cases, but I mean, I've covered a few of them on my own, and I know that there's plenty more. There's never a shortage, unfortunately. It's really scary how often it happens. And, it's happening somewhere right now. We don't know about it.
Well, of course it is. It's all over. And I would love for change to happen instantly. And it'll never happen that way. But by golly, fight for it. As a DCS director of every state, fight for these children's rights and to get your people to do their job correctly. Lay eyes on these kids, make it happen. Yep. And if it saves one, then you've done a good job. Exactly. I want to save them all. We know that's not possible because there's just too much evil out there. But like I said, if it could save kids, why not? Just do better. Do better.
That's it. That's all you can hope for. I do hope that some reform can come out of this. And if there's anything that I can do to help you, your family, let me know. I'll be glad to do an update someday. Whenever you guys are ready, I'm here for that. I've talked to Gina a number of times. So that's definitely something I don't just tell a story and then forget about that child. No, Kinsleigh has a piece of my heart now.
I do appreciate that. She was very down the road from my house, not far from here. So she's close. And she's 2 grades over from my brother.
Wow.
And we have ordered a monument for her.
Oh, good.
Yes. So we are waiting for it to come in. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. We are planning to invite people, especially the ones that didn't come to the funeral that weren't invited because it was actually a private funeral. But I know the Valley Brook mobile home community, they're all still heartbroken and still reeling from this. I do keep in touch with quite a few of them since it's happened. I still talk to them periodically. And I know that they would love to come and pay their respects. So we are going to try to do it as a community thing. Once her headstone gets set, we're inviting everybody there for just kind of maybe a moment of peace to everybody reflect on Kinsleigh and her life and her short-lived life, and to be able to honor her with such a beautiful headstone. So we're really looking forward to that part of it.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So we wanted something befitting of a princess, and that's what we got. Pinna Monuments in Indianapolis are helping us out with it because they had a child that died at 6 years old. And so it was kind of a foundation they had started. So they pitched in. And so luckily with our GoFundMe that we had, it was amazing. Between all the money we collected from that and the Pinna Monuments, we were able to pay for her funeral and her monument. So I just want to thank everybody from the bottom of our hearts that pitched in and helped with that and made it possible.
It's awesome.
I appreciate everybody's generosity. It's
a little faith in humanity when people help out like that.
It certainly does. They really came together, and it was a true blessing. Definitely thankful.
Good. Right when you guys needed a little bit of faith in humanity, I think.
Yes, definitely. I don't want her name to be forgotten. I don't want her death to be in vain. We want to keep her memory alive. We want to keep Judah's memory alive. We want to keep every child that has been taken by a failed system. We want to keep their voices alive. They deserve that. They deserve so much more. You doing what you're doing, we truly, truly appreciate it. It's very heartfelt and very sincere. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's all anybody can really do is use your talents, at least to try to help others in some way.
Absolutely.
According to Kinsleigh's obituary, Kinsleigh was born in Mooresville on December 3, 2018. She will be remembered for her loving, caring, and sweet way towards her family and friends. Kinsleigh was one who made sure everyone was happy and did what it took to make one laugh. From taking her dad's hat to singing You Need to Calm Down by Taylor Swift in the car with her grandparents, Kinsleigh always made sure you were just as happy as she was. Kinsleigh was a fan of Paw Patrol and Bubble Guppy's cartoon shows and enjoyed playing dress-up and getting her hair done. Foster mom Sarah Gessel remembers Kinsleigh for the smile the little girl rarely showed. When she did, it brought joy into the hearts of everyone who saw it. Wherever she is, I know she has all the freedom she could ever have wanted. My sources for this episode were Fox 59, WRTV ABC Indianapolis, the Indiana State Library, 13 WTHR, Little Angel Gowns on Facebook, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention website, the Indy Star, Law and Crime, Court TV, Facebook, Justia, Indiana's Protection Order Registry, Indiana's My Case portal, the Indiana State Public website, court documents, the Meredith Clark Funeral Home, and Carrie Hogan. That's it for this episode. Join me next time for another child's story. If you like the show, please follow or subscribe to Suffer the Little Children on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Spreaker, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast listening app. And please leave me a 5-star rating and a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. Visit the website at sufferthelittlechildrenpod.com. You can support the show by visiting patreon.com/stlcpod, where you can become a patron for rewards ranging from a shout-out by name on the show to bonus content and exclusive gifts. You can also support the show at ko-fi.com/stlcpod. Follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Suffer the Little Children Pod and on TikTok at STLCpod. View photos related to today's episode on Facebook. This podcast is researched, written, hosted, edited, and produced by Lane. Intro theme music is by Dream Note Music, and all music for the show is licensed from audiojungle.net. For more information about preventing or reporting child abuse, visit childhelp.org or call your area's child abuse hotline. And remember, if you see something, say something.